Hello and welcome back to yet another video, and this time we're continuing on from our last video and jumping back into some more Assetto Corsa Competizione. As always, you all know the drill by now. If at any point you find yourself enjoying this video, remember to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos like this, please consider subscribing as we are getting ever closer to that 1000 subscriber milestone. But with the formalities out of the way, let's get ourselves out on track and do some racing. This time we are in the Ford Mustang GT3 and we are around Silverstone against the AI for a quick 10-minute sprint race just to get the juices flowing. Now, as I was going through this race and having a good time doing it, it has to be said, one of the things that came into my mind was the decision that Kunos made to kind of turn their back on ACC and focus all of their attention on Evo kind of made me start to wonder if that was the right decision. Now, AC Evo obviously is still very much in early access. We're only on 0.5. However, it's been out for over a year at this point and we still don't really seem to be any closer to understanding exactly what that game is going to be. Obviously the career mode was pulled, people aren't happy about it, and it makes total sense. It was a big part of the marketing of the game, and now it's not going to be present anymore, which is a real shame. The free roam feature is still very much yet to be seen. At the moment it's all just a bit of a concept, but we don't seem to be getting any closer to actually seeing more information about it other than a little teaser trailer of a couple of cars driving around some villages close to where the Nürburgring is. I mean, we know that it's been worked on because in the last update, a lot of the 3D models were put in place around the map, which you can access by using the free cam, so things are definitely happening and progress is being made, but it just seems to be taking an incredibly long time to get at least an initial first version of what it's going to be. It's a real shame as well because that's the USP of Evo, that's exactly what makes it unique and different from everything else out there, but it's taken a very long time to materialise. And even though with each and every update that we get for Evo, they give us more cars and more tracks, which is great, obviously it's fantastic to have more and more content within the game, but the problem we have is that there's not actually anything you can really do with it. After the last update, the air quotes career mode was obviously removed. That now only leaves you with the ability to hot lap, race against the AI, or race online. And to be fair, putting the AI in that list is actually being kind of generous because they're really horrible right now. And then when it comes to the online multiplayer, I also don't think that's in a particularly great state right now either. In my experience of the online multiplayer, the races are incredibly hit and miss. The M4 GT3 race is fun, the M4 in Evo is very fun to drive, it sounds good, it drives good, but the race is just a little bit too long, so what happened in my experiences of that race were the sign-up numbers would be quite high, but then very quickly people would drop out because they just weren't interested in sticking around for 40 minutes, which I can understand because in a one-make series it's not particularly enjoyable, there's not really too much strategy, it's too long of a race. And then there's the road car races, which they're a lot shorter and they make a lot more sense. You know, they're like 15-minute sprint races, which is what you would expect. But obviously, depending on the time of day, they're not overly populated, as Evo itself is not particularly populated right now. However, by comparison, ACC is much more populated. When I last checked SteamDB, ACC had 3 times the amount of people currently online, and obviously that's just on Steam. When you factor console into that as well, I would imagine the numbers are a lot higher. Not everyone wants to drive Forza or GT7 or Rennsport or Project Motor Racing, and given ACC's age and how established it is now, I would imagine it's still incredibly popular on console. Possibly not quite as much on PS5, obviously it makes sense for GT7 to have the lion's share of the player base over there, but definitely it's still going to be a popular pick. But for people who want something that's more simulation than GT7, there aren't too many options, and I think this is where there's areas for ACC to explore more opportunities. We're now starting to see games come through like Rennsport, Project Motor Racing. There's probably going to be more in the future that offer crossplay between all platforms and not just console to console. Given that ACC already has an established player base across all platforms, I think it would make sense to somehow try and unify the experience for all platforms. This would obviously be great for things like competitive racing and people who want to run leagues, people who have friends on different platforms, rather than having 2 completely segregated player bases. I'm sure there's a technical limitation as to why that wasn't possible, but just an idea. And then there's the existing content within ACC, which even though it is all strictly structured around one classification of racing, which is GT racing, there is a lot of stuff that's in this game. There's a lot of cars, there's a lot of tracks. Each of the cars has lots of liveries from across the various different seasons. So if, for instance, you wanted to rerun the 2023 version of the GT World Challenge Series, you could do that if you really, really wanted to. Even though it's bare bones, there's the beginnings of a career mode in there, which is definitely something that could be built upon. Obviously at the moment it's quite a shallow experience, but there's definitely things that could be done with that to expand it into something a little bit more that provides a much deeper and rich experience. And then, as we've already spoken about a little bit, there's the online experience, which is still incredibly populated. Obviously, with LFM, there is a consistent player base, and you'll always be able to sign up for a fairly well-populated race. I assume that it's quite good with different time zones. Obviously, for myself, I'm based in an EU time zone, so for me, I never had any difficulty signing up to races over the past couple of nights. At pretty much every single time, there was at least 3 to 4 splits available, which, given the age of this game, given how popular LMU is at the moment, it's impressive to see that there's still a dedicated player base. And I think it's probably also reasonable to assume that a lot of people are still running leagues on ACC if you didn't want to go via the LFM route. And the last update that came to ACC brought us the 2025 liveries, which is obviously a fantastic update. However, I think something that could have been done is to include all of the latest Evo versions of the current cars. Obviously, there's a lot of tracks that are in ACC as well that are also based on quite old scans, so could they somehow have been either relays scanned or scans purchased from somewhere else to use in ACC? And I think for the ACC community, that would have been a really huge win. Now obviously, I fully understand that ACC is all centred around one discipline, one class, which is GT racing, as we mentioned, and that's not for everyone, which is completely and utterly reasonable. Not everybody is interested in driving GT3 or GT4 cars. People like to race road cars, and that's perfectly fine. However, what I would say is that this is where the original Assetto Corsa is still able to stand its ground. Obviously, through the support of mods, you're able to do all different kinds of things to that game, which people have already done. Despite its age, it still looks fantastic, the physics are still amazing, and as I said, through mods, you can do more or less whatever it is you want to do to that game. Not if you're on console, which is obviously a shame, but for those of us who are on PC, that game is just a complete playground for anything you want to do. And again, it makes me wonder, who was asking for a newer version of that? Because essentially that's what AC Evo is. It's a continuation of the original AC. I mean, graphically, it looks a lot better than AC does out of the box, but you would expect that given the age difference between the two games. But right now, it doesn't really offer anything else over and above what the original AC does. And obviously, at the time of recording this video, putting the graphics to one side, I think the other things that AC Evo does comparable to AC, it just doesn't do them as well. AC Evo for me at this point is just not distinguishing itself differently from everything else that's already out there. Obviously the career mode was kind of meant to do that, but that's now been taken away, and there's still this mention of free roam, which like I mentioned, we're not really any closer to finding out what that's actually going to be. Evo at the moment for me kind of feels like it's just lost in space a little bit. Almost like there's a lot of paths that are laid out in front of Kunos, but they're not really sure which one they want to take. They seem to take a couple of steps down one path and then backtrack a little bit and focus on something else. And it makes Evo feel like at the moment it's just a bit of a show and tell, like, look, here's something that we could do, here's how great it could look, but we're not really sure what we want to do with this just yet. Oh, and also, we're not sure when it's quite going to be done. I'm sure that the decision that they made to leave ACC where it is and focus all of their time and energy into AC Evo was not one that they took lightly, and it probably means that they can move a little bit faster to deliver 1.0 of whatever it's going to be. However, based on what we know right now, it does make me wonder if it was the right decision. Could they have continued to support ACC for a little bit longer until they completely crystallised exactly what they want Evo to be? And I know that they do have to draw a line under it at some point and say, enough is enough, we're done with this now, we're moving on to the next project, but now just doesn't necessarily seem like the right time, given the state of Evo and the fact that everything's a bit up in the air. Could they somehow have enabled mod support for ACC or outsourced it to someone else to keep the wheels turning, so to speak? Obviously, LMU is the officially licensed game for the World Endurance Championship, and ACC for GT World Challenge. Could they have continued to do something to continue to support that series? Or are they going to try and bring all of the content from ACC into AC Evo and kind of put it all under one roof? We just don't really know. I mean, as fantastic as that might sound on paper, sometimes it's better to just really focus on one thing rather than trying to be all things to all men, which is what AC Evo feels like it's trying to be. I think the reason why things like LMU and ACC are so good is because they were hyper focused on one thing and they executed on that thing. With all that being said, I'm really excited to see what they do with Evo. I really do hope that they're able to deliver on all the promises that they make and turn Evo into something really quite fantastic. I'm a big believer in having variety in sim racing. It only leads to more positive outcomes as it forces other developers and other studios to raise the bar. But right now, it just seems to me that Kunos are kind of fumbling around in the dark. They have no real clear sense of direction or exactly what they want to do. Now, like I've said in pretty much all of my videos, there's a very good chance that I could be talking complete and utter nonsense. And if you think that's the case, let me know below. But to me, it just seems like a bit of an odd decision to turn their back on what is a very well developed and reasonably quite polished product to focus all their attention on something that they've not quite figured out exactly what they want it to be yet. But with that, I would just like to say thank you very much if you've made it this far into the video and you've listened to me waffle for close to 10 minutes now. It's very, very much appreciated, and a big thank you as well, as this week I was accepted into the YouTube Partner Program, which, quite honestly, I never would have expected that would have happened anyway, but for it to have happened so quickly after starting this channel, for me, that's genuinely quite amazing. So thank you very, very much to everyone who's subscribed, people who've watched videos, liked, commented, engaged in the community with other comments as well. It really is fantastic to see, so thank you very, very much. And as always, if you've liked this video and you found it useful, please remember to hit the thumbs up button, as that really helps me out a lot with the algorithm. And if you want to see more videos like this and support the channel, please consider hitting the subscribe button. We're very close to hitting that next milestone of 1,000 subscribers, so if you'd be willing to do that and help me get there, I'd be incredibly grateful. But until the next time, take it easy, keep it on the island, and I will catch you in the next one.